The world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. Gosh, there's a lot of twos in that thing. And we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out and Television Network and Hotspots Magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of LGBTQ plus experience. We bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. Let's welcome anchor Sobourney Barnes, a true South Florida native, born and raised in Broward County to parents who found joy in public service. Is it any surprise she began working then at SunServe, a local nonprofit agency that serves the LGBTQ plus community? A graduate of Florida Atlantic University and Florida International University, Sobourney has been an advocate for LGBTQIA plus youth for almost a decade through her work at SunServe. Welcome, Sobourney.
Thank you. Let's welcome anchor Glen Weinzimer, founder of the Smart Ride, the second largest AIDS bicycle ride in the country, and the only one of its size to donate 100% of the proceeds to AIDS service organizations. He also owns Bona Italian Restaurant, where they celebrate Give Back Mondays, offering a portion of all sales to a different charity each week. Good evening, Glenn.
Good evening, Sobourney, and thank you. Actually, the restaurant last night, we actually did our Give Back Monday for Sunshine Cathedral.
Yeah,
right here.
And I was there, and it was jammed.
I was not there. I was on an airplane.
Glenn's staff sat me in the bathroom.
And you still got good service.
They got the memo.
Right?
You still got the garlic
handicap
knot.
stall.
Yes,
I
we still got the garlic knots. Absolutely. That's all that matters. Right.
Exactly. Okay, let's welcome Maxx Fenning from Prism. At just 17, Max founded this amazing nonprofit organization that works to expand access to LGBTQ plus inclusive education and sexual health resources for LGBTQ plus youth in South Florida. Now at 19, Max is a senior at the University of Florida and serves as Prism's president. Good evening, Max.
Thank you, Glenn. Happy to be here as always. Let's welcome anchor Dr. Tai Houser. He is an associate professor of English and humanities at Broward College. Additionally, he teaches for extended periods of time at international colleges in China, India, Spain, and Bolivia. Good evening, Tai.
Thank you, Max, for that marvelous introduction.
Ooh.
We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Ultimate Tuesday, 22222.
Bless you.
Yeah, that was a mouthful. All right, well, let's begin by queering up South Florida. Don't Say Gay amendment will out Florida's LGBTQ plus students even if dangerous for them. Opponents of Florida's Don't Say Gay bill were worried that a new amendment introduced by Representative, you know him, Joe Harding, could put students in danger. The amendment required schools to disclose any personal information that students shared with faculty within 6 weeks. While the amendment stated that, quote, the plan must facilitate disclosure between the student and parent through an open dialogue in a safe and supportive and judgment-free environment that respects the parent-child relationship and protects the mental, emotional, and physical well-being of the student. Sounds like gaslighting to me. Mm-hmm. Critics fear that revealing students' gender or sexual concerns to unaccepting parents could put the children in danger. Representative Harding moments before we went on the air this evening, pulled the amendment before the House voted on the bill earlier this afternoon.
Ooh, this is so dangerous. And I want to know.
Oh, wait, I've got to interrupt you. You're 19. Are you allowed to talk about LGBT or anything to do with sexual? Is this a violation of any of our rules?
Nah, he's an adult technically.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
I
Technically, you're an adult. Okay.
in
Sorry,
theory,
but
maybe
yeah.
not in practice.
Right.
But I think what's really dangerous is this. The original bill had an exception for disclosing this information that said that if someone suspects that disclosing that information could result in abuse or abandonment or neglect, they're allowed to withhold it. This amendment basically said, yeah, you can withhold this information if you think that there's going to be abuse, but then you still have to disclose it within 6 weeks. I don't really know what that 6 weeks is supposed to do if they've already established that it is going to cause harm to a child.
It's supposed to make you change your mind, Max.
Exactly.
Right.
Of course.
Push you back in the closet.
Of course.
So you can spend 6 weeks being completely stressed because you know that something's coming down the pike and you don't know how to handle it.
Sobourney, you run one of the best youth programs in South Florida for LGBTQ. Where are you in terms of what you've been watching for the last couple of months here on this Don't Say Gay bill and the reaction of students, LGBTQ students?
Well, where am I at? Again, I want to move. I want to get out of here. I'm kidding. But what I've noticed with the students is that a lot of them are very much oblivious. They have no idea that this is happening or that this law is going to impact them and their daily lives. The few that do know are, of course, they're speaking up, they are speaking out, and they are not going to be silent, which I'm very happy about. But it does worry me that this is something that I know is going to impact the youth that I work with, and that I'm going to see most likely a high rise in depression and anxiety, and also an issue with them being able to even connect to services like SunServe, because outside of being in the home, the next place that they are at for a large portion of the day is in schools. And schools provide additional resources. They provide connection to places like SunServe and other organizations that provide free mental health and case management service. And if these kids are going to be forced to disclose to parents, which yes, consent is needed to provide services, at the same time, sometimes you just need to talk it out. Like, is it safe for me to even say this to my parents? This law is going to impact them and make it that they're not even able to do that.
I'm curious, with your expertise with us at Queer News Tonight, this evening. Are you concerned about potential mental health and other related risks for LGBT youth, even to the point of what the Trevor Project is talking about extensively about Florida, that they're concerned about suicide?
100%. It is not always safe for a young person to come out. That's just true. We may think that we know what a person's home situation is like, but we don't. We really don't. And sometimes there can be everything's okay, and that's in public, but then the private face is very different and it can be harmful. And on top of that, coming out, we've all had the coming out process that we've had to deal with. It is very personal. It is very individual. You can't force someone out of the closet. I'm just gonna disclose my own. I was forced out of the closet by my parents. One parent outed me to the other parent, and then the other parent outed me to my stepfamily, and it was very traumatic. I did not want to do it. It was something that upset me very much. There were tears, there were anger, there was a lot of anxiety going on in that moment, and I was a teenager with no additional support. Thank God I had people at school that I could go to. I could talk to my teammates. If I needed to, I had a GSA advisor who, while not queer, was very supportive. So there was an additional support system outside of the home, and not saying that I did not have support in the home. I did have them, but it's
what
an
if
experience.
You didn't? And Sobourney, another opportunity that you allow me to explore. Harding's amendment here, when you hear that he basically is saying, well, even if it's dangerous, we'll suspend it, but after 6 weeks, you still have to out the LGBT.
It's ridiculous.
What did you think about that when you see there's an acknowledgement that we really don't, at the end of the day, care about the consequences on the child?
Honestly, it's disgusting. It is honestly very disgusting to me. The fact that many of the bills that are being pushed that are against LGBT individuals have no true basis to them. Even if I'm not mistaken, DeSantis himself said, there's not a lot of youth being told that they need to hide their gender. Like, it's a small portion, I'm assuming. if you don't know, you don't have facts, why are you going through with this? All you're going to do is hurt children, but you're trying to protect children. That is such a it's a contradiction.
I think one of the things also to consider is that at that age, you're accusing somebody of something that they may not have dealt with yet themselves, but are now being labeled. And what is that? How does that play in? They haven't gotten a chance to grow into who they are going to be, and they're at that point of confusion and not understanding, and they don't have the safe space anymore at school, as some of these organizations might have to go by the wayside.
You know, Glenn, that's a great point, and I want to turn that point to Max. Max, I read all about you going to Tallahassee and lobbying and in support of the rejection of this and related bills. Tell us what that experience was like. You're 19 years old, you're in Tallahassee, you're talking to these people that are trying to accomplish this. What was your experience like?
Yeah, so I went up to Tallahassee with State School South Florida, AHF, and it was my first time actually lobbying or directly speaking with legislators. And it was a very unique experience, being able to see just how sort of horrendous some of these people can be. And to be fair, we spoke with a lot of Democratic legislators who were very, very sort of in our side of the court, and really opposed to this bill and really in support of these discussions in schools. But when we are talking, we spoke with the actual aide of Representative Harding and Senator Baxley, who's the sponsor of the Senate.
It's called the Gang
bill.
of Two, by the way, Harding and Baxley.
Right, and it was so odd to see just how out of touch these people are. State School South Florida, they posted a picture actually of us speaking with the aide, and said, with a caption basically talking about us discussing our opposition to the bill with Representative Harding's aide. He actually commented on it, and he said, Representative Harding here, did you politely tell the students that Don't Say Gay is not the name of the bill, and calling it that is an insult to gay folks? As if a straight
Were
man...
you insulted? Yeah.
As if,
the tone is a little deaf there.
Right. Telling a bunch of gay children what is an insult to gay children was very interesting.
Yeah.
He did thankfully get a lot of egg on his face in response to that. I just wish that egg on his face translated to the bill not passing.
I'm curious, going to Tallahassee, thank you very much on behalf of certainly the South Florida community and going to Tallahassee. Was it, with what you're watching and the advocacy that you did on behalf of yourself and PRISM, was it something that you thought worthwhile? Tell us about that.
I think that, an issue here is that a lot of these happen on party lines, and that's something that's a very real reality in 2022, and a very unfortunate reality in 2022. But we did hear, through the grapevine, some people who are actually on the fence now because of some of the talks that we had, and at a bare minimum, to be able to see, even if this bill were to pass and we got, we had in some way, shape, or form bipartisan opposition, that shows that there is, that common sense tells you that this really is harmful and this really is detrimental.
Well, we've spent quite a sizable amount of time on this. This issue is super important. It is absolutely critically super important. It's why it's getting national and international headlines. We're so lucky, Tai and Glenn and I are so lucky to have Sobourney and Max here tonight. One point that I would make before we move on to our next story tonight in Queer News Tonight is the most dangerous thing about this bill is if LGBT doesn't think it's important. It's very concerning to me what you said, that this may be escaping attention, and the people that are doing this the two that we have just mentioned. We're reporting at this hour that the amendments have basically all been defeated. There's a couple that are still in multiple reading. We expect on Thursday that the bill is going to be voted on. Likely, it's going to be passed. I'm encouraged that maybe some are sitting on the fence and there's a possibility of it being stopped, but likely it will not be. And this amendment about outing children after 6 weeks, regardless of the consequences on them, is the example of why this bill is so dangerous, because it is what is called a beachhead. They have codified law by passing Don't Say Gay, and in all disrespect to the comment that was made, it is exactly what this is, and it is not disrespectful to the gay community because it's exactly what's intended. And where it will get terrible is what this amendment was designed to do, which is let's add to it and let's add a little more. And now we have a beachhead, and let's expand the beach 100 yards and then a quarter mile and then a mile. And then that's when this bill gets really.
And I do want to just make one thing very clear. The people, I watched the hearing when it went past in its last House committee. The people in support of this bill were saying absolutely vile things about LGBT people, and it made it very clear that the proponents of this bill, they don't want the right to know if their child is trans or gay. They want the right to be able to stop their child from being trans or gay, and that is the real danger here.
That's just sad.
Incredible.
As we move on, what interests me was that youth are not paying attention, and then even at the House level, they're not listening either. They tune out when you're speaking. They don't show up at session, and so no one is listening on either side, and these people get to push their agenda through. So just very frustrating.
And
anyway.
And one last thought. If you know this better than anyone at this table, and Max too, in what he does at PRISM, if we don't stand up and advocate for our LGBT youth, my goodness, who's going to do that?
Exactly.
Right.
This is so incredibly important, incredibly important.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on. Let's clear up trans rights. History as Caribbean's Trinidad and Tobago has first trans senator. The transgender activist Joelle de Souza has become the first openly transgender senator in Trinidad and Tobago. She is filling in for the ailing Senator Jayanti Luchamedia, a member of the United National Congress, a center-left opposition party. De Souza posted a picture of her being sworn in with the caption, quote, "Always happy to serve my country," end quote. In 1993, she became the first person in the country to undergo gender confirmation surgery. In Trinidad and Tobago's non-discrimination law does not include gender identity and sexual orientation, and De Souza has been arrested in the past for her activism.
We should first let Glenn off the hook. That is not a reading impairment, although maybe.
It might be, but
we are having a little teleprompter issue for him.
But I'm getting help.
Right. What do we think about Trinidad and the first trans senator?
I'm excited. I think she has had a lot of firsts. She was the first person in the country to get gender affirmation surgery. I believe she was also the first trans person to file a lawsuit against the government in that country as well. And I'm excited to see the new firsts that she creates and working to make sure that she's also not the last.
She's got a lot of weight on her shoulders, because she wasn't elected into that position. She's been placed there, so she has to prove, not to us, but she has to prove to the general public at large there that she is, just because she's transgender, don't judge me by that, judge me by who I am.
Yeah.
So she's getting a big platform.
Yeah. Well, and we're also talking, again, as we do so often, about the islands and about how kind of homophobic and anti-LGBTQ they are. So this is, this is big news, especially for them.
Mm-hmm. And interesting to me, I mentioned about Don't Say Gay creates a beachhead. Well, it works the other way too sometimes. And this senator becomes a beachhead, and the beachhead is called the Caribbean. Exactly, right. To your point, it's a start. and somebody else gets to build a little bit on the beachhead and say, wait, your island should be doing this, and then your island should be doing this, and all of a sudden that kind of virus of freedom and non-discrimination begins to spread from that beach.
But the fear is that those on the right will then suddenly organize when they see this happening and try to suppress it and push it back again, which is like what we're seeing here in Florida.
I was going to say, it sounds like Florida.
It's like Florida,
right,
exactly. So,
all right.
Let's queer up education. Florida says don't say gay, while Orlando vows to keep teaching Pulse history. After the shooting at Pulse nightclub, the Orange County School District began hosting an annual Gay Pride Month, complete with supportive notes on campus marquees and bulletin boards. School administrators made sure every high school and middle school had a gay-straight alliance, and students were supported if they wanted to use the pronouns that matched their gender identity. Clinton McCracken, 49 years old, a teacher at Howard Middle School Academy of Arts, said of the Don't Say Gay bill, quote, "This is a dangerous bill, which basically tells our GLBTQ students that something is wrong with them. This bill says I won't be able to have conversations or be able to create an affirmative space for my students," end quote.
What I love about this is it absolutely sets up the same argument that the state is making in order to support the Don't Say Gay bill. They're saying, oh, we want local control of this. And Orlando's saying, sure, we'll take that argument. We want local control of this. And that's going to lead itself to a lawsuit that'll go to the state Supreme Court at least.
You know, at the end of the day, I continue to ask this question, and I rarely hear a really satisfying answer to it. I continue to make the comparison. In 1937, Germany did the exact same thing. They said very clearly through the emerging organization of the Nazi Party, you cannot talk about this. And where did they start? In schools. They started to say you can't talk about X or Y. It was principally Jews, and in a secondary way, it was LGBT, queers. I don't really see the difference here. How does somebody in a political basis start to say, you can't talk about this? We are going to ban your books that talk about it. We're going to prevent your speech about it. We're going to report you to the Gestapo in 6 weeks. It's a very disturbing trend that we're watching, that we watched in 1937 in Germany, and everybody said, oh, this can never happen again.
And we're hearing that argument now, which is extremely frustrating to me, because I pointed to when Trump was in office and that the slow chipping away at your freedoms, at your democracies, at books that you can't read in schools. And we've reported on articles here of books that they tried to eliminate. And it just, where do we go from there? You know, and for people to say, or for people to wake up and pay attention, whether they be the students, whether it be, you know, those listening to the other side of the story, when do they stop and listen so that we don't go down this track? It's extremely frightening, because it isn't inconceivable to repeat a Nazi Germany in some fashion in the not too distant future.
It's very sad, but history always repeats itself in some way, shape, or form.
It absolutely does.
Next, let's queer up the world. Kuwait's historic court ruling overturning criminal trans identity law. Kuwait's law, known as Article 198, persecuted trans people for the, quote, imitation of the opposite sex, end quote. However, Kuwait's constitutional court declared the punishment of those whose appearance did not match their presumed gender with, quote, inconsistent with the Constitution's keenness to ensure and preserve personal freedom, end quote. Lynn Malouf, Amnesty International's Middle East and North Africa Deputy Director, issued a statement in response to the news of the bill, saying, quote, the Kuwaiti Constitutional Court's decision to overturn Article 198 of the Penal Code is a welcome development and a major breakthrough for transgender rights in the region. Article 198 was deeply discriminatory, overly vague, and never should have been accepted into law in the first place, end quote.
And it continues around the world.
This is a rare find of some good news in the Middle East and this region of the world.
I think that this is definitely a big step in the right direction, but I think that more big steps are needed. I believe homosexuality is still illegal and criminalized up to 7 years of imprisonment in Kuwait. So there's definitely some room for improvement, to say the least.
Well, that's what we think about Kuwait.
Exactly.
That is our queer headlines for today. So let's catch up on the LGBTQ plus news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies.
Queer News Tonight has reported on coronavirus every week since January 6, 2020. Tonight we report that as of today, more than 5,610,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have contracted COVID-19.
Queer News Tonight remembers the more than 67,000 LGBTQ plus Americans that have died from coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 549 million vaccination doses have been administered in the U.S.
That is our pandemic news for tonight. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine and supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
I'm Victor Jimenez, the Executive Director of the Tampa Bay International Gay and Lesbian Film Festival, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, we finished tonight's Queer News headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus Flash News.
LGBTQ plus Flash News. South Dakota governor says, I don't know why LGBTQ plus people are depressed and anxious. It's not really a South Dakota accent, is it?
No.
Kristi Noem seems blissfully unaware of the contradictory stances she has on social issues. In one breath, she rails against critical race theory and teaching racism in classes, and in the next, she's arguing that Native American history needs to be taught. We can't wait until she learns about South Dakota's Great Sioux War. She also fought to ban transgender teenagers from competing in school sports, then wonder why so many members of the LGBTQ plus community in her state are feeling anxious and depressed. And it's sad indeed. Watch this.
There is a statistic circulating around right now that 90% of South Dakota's LGBTQ community is diagnosed with either anxiety or depression. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. That makes me sad, and we should figure it out.
I'm anxious and depressed that she actually can utter those words.
Suicide is not a laughing matter, depression and anxiety are not a laughing matter, but oh my God. How out of touch do you really need to be?
Yeah. Governor, let me help you. You are the governor of South Dakota, and you get half of it right. South. Welcome to the South, because this is what we experience in the South and in Dakota.
That is the most ignorant thing I have very much ever heard someone say. You're really wondering why LGBT youth who are being attacked on multiple levels are feeling anxious and depressed. How would you feel if you were in their shoes? Come on.
It is beyond sad. And we all know that the LGBT community is 4 times more likely to commit suicide than the general population. And she thinks it's just sad that people are depressed. Anyway, all right. LGBTQ plus Flash News. Elliot Page announces new memoir, Pageboy. Elliot Page's journey has been a very public one. While still presenting as female, he famously starred in Hard Candy, Juno, The Umbrella Academy, and more. Now he has announced that he is releasing a memoir in 2023 entitled Pageboy that will explore the private side of his journey. Flatiron Books wrote in a statement, quote, "The memoir will delve into Page's relationship with his body, his experiences as one of the most famous trans people in the world, and will cover mental health, assault, love, relationships, sex, and the cesspool that is often called Hollywood." I loved him in Umbrella Academy.
I love that.
That was such a great show. And yeah, I was hoping we'd show the picture.
Yeah.
I can't wait to read the book. I don't usually read biographies or autobiographies, but I definitely will because he is a really, really, really bright person. And whether he is presenting as a female previously or a male currently, cute as a frickin' button.
Agreed.
I think Elliot Page has done so much for the LGBT community, both before and after transition. So I'm excited to read more about their story.
You know what's exciting to me about Elliot Page is piggybacking exactly on your observation of what he has done in representation in the community before transition, and now how public he is as a male after his transition. You contrast Elliot Page and this book that's coming, this memoir of Pageboy, to that Kardashian one that's out there. Yeah, Elliot Page has got it all hands down.
No, it's really amazing. They are such an amazing advocate, and they have been for years. So I'm very happy that, and again, he, not they, my bad. I'm always gender neutral, that he's writing this memoir and sharing his story because it's one that I feel we really need to hear. And I can't help it. They're also very cute, so I like them. I can't help it. Let's get back to LGBTQ flash news. Understanding why Southern red states are declaring a new civil war on LGBTQ and race.
And Dakota.
And Dakota, yes. 150 years ago, U.S. conservatives began to change voting laws to restrict people of color from being able to vote or hold office. The Reconstruction era, as it's called, has been largely forgotten, and the war on social issues being waged by modern conservatives seems aimed at keeping it that way. States where the GOP controls both the governorship and the state legislature are moving in unprecedented numbers to restrict abortion, limit access to voting, ban books, retrench transgender rights, and constrain teachers' abilities to discuss race, gender, and sexual orientation at public K-9 schools and increasingly at public colleges and universities. This is just overwhelmingly insane, and I'm honestly not surprised that this is where Southern red states are right now. I'm really not.
Conservative white people need to just get a grip and understand that our country is multicultural.
Mm-hmm.
New law, don't say Southern.
This is scary to see all of these rights that are being chipped away. These are rights that are supported by an overwhelming majority of Americans. Abortion, the rights that talk about these different things in schools, same-sex marriage even coming under attack, or in some instances. And by people who, frankly, aren't going to be here in like 10 years.
Exactly.
So,
Are you talking to me?
Fingers crossed.
if it walks like a duck.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Ooh, painful. That was a
comeback.
That's a read, by the way. My family's from Virginia and West Virginia, and they were tobacco farmers and hog farmers. We had hog farms. For my entire life, I identified as a Confederate. And it was in my 20s where I began to realize, wait, I understand the offensiveness of the phrase and how that washes on people. When I get into my 50s, then I really understand the change in America of going, we're in a situation where we are not, male whiteness is not going to be the majority of America. And what we are watching is a response from male white men that are trying to hold on by their fingertips.
Not many centenarians actually will come forward and say that.
Another read from the oldest person at the table. Wow.
LGBTQ plus flash news. LGBTQ advocates read AOC on proposal to rename post office. Jean Manford marched in the New York City Pride in 1972 with her son after he was assaulted while handing out pro-gay flyers at a political rally. That was the beginning of PFLAG. 5 years ago, a local post office in Queens was named after Jean and her husband Jules. Recently, AOC, seemingly unaware of the history of the Manfords, suggested that the post office be renamed after LGBTQ plus activist Lorena Borjas. While Borjas was known as the mother of the transgender Latinx community in Queens, many are blasting AOC for her lack of knowledge of LGBTQ plus history. Maybe we work on renaming some of those other buildings that are named after Confederate soldiers. I think would be a better use of our time.
Good place to start.
You know what's interesting to me here, and this might be pulling a little privilege, but I will take any day of the week when a congressman and the LGBTQ community are arguing over naming too many of our public buildings after LGBT people. I'll take that moment any day of the week.
Oh, like I'll applaud AOC for her attempt. I mean, there was, of course, good behind that, but it was, of course, a bit tone deaf. And like Max said, there are so many other buildings that are named after Confederate leaders. We can change them.
Yeah.
Or build another post office because they finally got funding so that the post office doesn't go away and they'll be delivering your mail 6 days a week.
But never on Sundays. There's no post on Sundays.
We're just going to move on and queer up gay culture. The top 9 Karens LGBTQ+ loves to hate.
Wait, how did Karen get the Karen story?
Oh, no.
Came back. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. So many Karens, so many owls. For those of you who may have lived under a rock for the last decade, the term Karen has come to describe people, generally women, who feel they're entitled to get exactly what they want, no matter the actual rules or how it may affect others. We've gathered 9 of our favorite Karens to hate from the amazing subreddit entitled Karens.
I get the first one. Our first Karen was very upset by acceptance. When she saw someone's coexist bumper sticker, she wrote a note that she taped to someone's window. She decided to speak for the entire Christian community by saying that the cross was being disrespected by showing it with other religious icons. Woman.
The next Karen, are we going to look at that? Okay. The next Karen wins the Parent of the Year award for compassion, not. She wrote a letter to Kroger, very upset because of a trans woman working in the produce department. The letter read, quote, "That person in produce, I think, should be somewhere where we don't have to look at he, she, or it. I should not have to be subjected to my grandchildren having to see that abomination while we are trying to get groceries."
She can order online.
For department.
The next Karen had to go for a CT scan, but refused to wear a mask. She wrote a very long story about how she kept escalating the issue as, quote, a violation of her rights, end quote. The story finally ends in her saying how embarrassed she was that a tech finally agreed to do the scan, but only if they were wearing a full biohazard suit. While that was likely the point of them doing so, she was still proud of herself for getting her way.
The next Karen is a special kind of evil. Frequently, barbers and cosmetologists will offer free haircuts for homeless people so that they can get jobs or generally function in Karen-controlled societies. This woman was so upset that she couldn't verify the license of the person giving haircuts on the side of the road that she wanted to call the police.
Karen's always using the police.
I may be a privileged white guy, but I love people of all walks of life. And this Karen, however, has a different viewpoint. She seems to be afraid that white people are going to go extinct. Maybe in her case, it probably wouldn't be such a bad thing.
Karens. But to something lovely. Kids love birthdays. The pandemic made celebrating very difficult for many kids to have their special day. A great workaround was car parades, where family and friends would drive by the home of the person celebrating, honking horns, cheering, and playing music, having a good time. This Karen wasn't having it though, and decided to stand in the middle of the street to stop one such parade.
And the next Karen. Our next Karen is the gold-digging kind. After cheating on her husband with his best friend and getting the prenup thrown out, she is trying to get even more alimony, even though her ex-husband is living in a hotel since she got the house.
How'd she manage that?
Oh my God. Then there's this California Karen who flipped out on a Starbucks employee, like I used to be, because of the store's mask policy. That seems to be a running theme. After she flipped off the employee, then came back and posted their picture online to try and shame them, people sided with the poor barista and started a GoFundMe for them. After over $50,000 was raised for him, the Karen tried to sue him for some of the money.
That 10% management fee, that's what you want.
That's right.
Finally, we have the kitty Karen. This woman begged her friends online to adopt a cat that was at the shelter. Please, oh please, please take the cat. She decided she wanted the cat for herself, though, and her family, and then posted a rant that the animal had been adopted from out under her. Make up your mind, Karen. Have you had experiences with Karens in the past? Let us know in the comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Does anybody have any idea why at the core base of it, we hate these people, but we love these people all at the same time?
Like pictures from Walmart.
Yeah.
Fascinating. You can't look away.
It's like you just don't understand how there could be people out there like this. However, at the same time, you love to hate them, but Karens can be really harmful, especially the one who called the police on that individual giving the haircuts.
Haircuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like the South Dakota governor. You just can't believe the stuff that's coming out of their mouth.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get the ridiculousness.
Yeah.
It's like they're doing a parody of themselves. It is ridiculous.
Yeah. We're so entitled. We just are so
just you,
entitled. You want me to give just 10 examples on you? Wait, ask me to give 10. No, we seriously.
Can we do it at the Ritz-Carlton?
Yes, right. We're
Caviar.
Ooh.
exactly. I love Karen stories. We have done so many of them over the last couple of years. Of course, we've gone through the pandemic. And at Queer News Tonight, frequently it was the only thing that we had to lighten up the news. And we would do a story about this ridiculous, normally a woman, but it's not only them.
That's because the white men are trying to ruin the world by afraid of losing their position. So that's the only reason they're not Karens.
Like, there are a few there are some white male Karens out there.
Oh,
Recently,
absolutely.
There was
Wait,
one who was upset
wait.
at the T-Mobile store.
Turn your head to the right. There you go.
My mom used to be a Karen, until I started.
Seriously?
Called out mom like this.
Until I started shaming her to her face, like we're all doing to these knives.
And that positively changed the outcome?
Yeah, because she didn't want me shaming her to her face.
Sometimes negative reinforcement
I
works.
need to get your mom's Facebook page because I'm going to share this segment with her.
Like, look what your
I'm sure she'll be watching anyway. Hi, Mom. Hey.
Well, we're proud of your son in Tallahassee.
Yes, we are.
Here on the news, not so much.
Stepping away from the Karens, that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you're a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
Well, if our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these type of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Sobourney Barnes, Glen Weinzimer, Maxx Fenning, and Dr. Tai Houser. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end the show, we have one final story. Let's queer up politics. U.S. Senate candidate Val Demings in her first interview with the LGBTQ plus community. Is Marco Rubio next? Well, finally, tonight we have one more important story, and it's the story that affects all LGBTQ lives in Florida and the U.S. Senate for all of America. Currently, the Equality Act and virtually everything that is important to the LGBTQ plus community, including Supreme Court nominations, hang in the balance of a 50-50 tie in the U.S. Senate. Florida's conservative and anti-LGBTQ Senator Marco Rubio is running for re-election in November. The presumptive Democratic nominee will be U.S. Congresswoman and former Orlando Police Chief Val Demings. Tonight, we will bring you the first ever interview directly with the LGBTQ community as a candidate for U.S. Senate. She spoke at the Florida LGBTQ plus Democratic Caucus called Turn It Up, Turn It Out. She spoke before the largest gathering of LGBTQ plus political advocates in St. Petersburg and then walked to our pop-up studio for the first ever Florida LGBTQ interview. It's interesting that this firebrand came to the interview riding her Harley-Davidson motorcycle. We explore her law enforcement roots combined with her unusual position of being a woman of color. These two combinations make her an opponent to Senator Rubio that is not typical for Florida. You get to see the interview first and then her powerful speech before the LGBTQ community. Senate candidate Val Demings. Well, Al Ferguson at Queer News Tonight, and we are at the Florida LGBTQ Democratic Caucus, and I have just watched an electrifying speech. This is the first time that I've had the pleasure of meeting Congresswoman Val Demings. Of course, the LGBTQ community in Florida knows one of our valiant congresswomen serving in the U.S. House of Representatives. And a little secret, in case you haven't heard and you're living under a rock, she's running for U.S. Senate. And who is she running against? Let me think. Oh, yes, now I remember. Marco Rubio. Thank you for taking a few minutes with us at Queer News Tonight.
It's great to be with you.
Your speech tonight was electrifying. Of course, the crowd was ecstatic. And I was asking people the energy that you were distributing here tonight at this caucus presentation. And then I heard the reason why you were so excited tonight is you all day doing your campaign presentations all over Florida. You're riding around on your Harley Davidson and getting off and doing your presentation, and that just energizes you. Is that true?
My
is what I've heard?
2004 Harley Davidson Road King Classic.
You know,
all day today.
All day.
Yes.
Gives you a lot of energy. I am completely now enthralled with you because I have a Harley Davidson, and we're Harley riders. Now, of course, Orlando Mayor and your representation in Congress for Orlando. You've decided to run for U.S. Senate on the Marco Rubio seat. You said something tonight that really is fascinating. We've been talking here and we've been listening to speeches and interviews about what's going on in Florida and these bills about students and don't say gay and banning books and transgender health attacks. And you loudly said, I'm a mother of 3 sons. Leave our children the hell alone. Not just alone. Tell us about that. Where does that emotion come from?
Well, you know, I grew up the daughter of a maid and a janitor. I was poor, black, female. I know what it feels like to be called ugly names. I know what it feels like to be discriminated against. I know what it feels like to be bullied and picked on just because of who I am. And so I just have zero tolerance for it. You know, I think about my 3 sons and I think about the children who are just trying to grow up to be wonderful adults and experience all that this great country is supposed to have to offer. We owe them more than to make them feel bad about who they are. We're so much better than that as a nation, and I just have zero tolerance for it.
You know, in your speech tonight at the Florida LGBTQ Democratic Caucus, in the news in a secondary way is Senator Rubio. He spoke this week in kind of a massaging of what happened on January 6th. And he said quite controversial words in terms of it may not have been an attack on the Capitol and it wasn't exactly what we thought. And you were the first person I thought of when I heard his words this week. What do you think about Senator Rubio representing Florida and his reaction to January 6th, and what your reaction is?
I'm very disappointed in Senator Rubio because we know what we saw with our eyes, heard with our ears, and experienced with our souls. He was there that day. He heard the glass break and the doors being beat down, the police officers being beat down, the ugly, racist things that were being said. And to deny that, he's a weak leader. He's one who will say anything for political gain. We're talking about a senator who voted against an independent commission to investigate what happened on January 6th. A commission that would have had an equal number of Republicans and Democrats. What is he so afraid of?
And what do you think the motivation for his positioning on January 6th is, to exactly what you just said?
I really believe that he's afraid of somehow implementing the former president, because I believe Senator Rubio still wants to run for president, and he will do anything, any way the wind blows politically. It is cool with him if he thinks it's going to be advantageous to him.
Well, first, I think Senator Rubio is going to have to get in line behind Governor DeSantis for 2024.
Well, I mean, when we look at the issues that we're facing in Florida today and around the nation today, we need good, strong leadership, people who really want to represent all people.
All the people. And we're talking to an LGBTQ audience. Your voice has been loud and clear on the Equality Act. Tell us a little bit about what you think about the value and importance of the Equality Act and where we are at.
It is extremely important, and as you know, we passed it in the House of Representatives. This critical piece of legislation that will help to level the playing field is sitting in the Senate, the place where the Senate minority leaders calls the graveyard, the place where legislation goes to die. I think that's shameful. And that's why it is so important that we send leaders to the Senate who really want to represent all of the people. The Equality Act is sitting there. The John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act is sitting there. The Freedom to Vote Act, legislation that would protect a woman's right to choose. We can do better, and we must do better.
I understand, and of course the LGBTQ community is listening to you loud and clear. We are watching unprecedented times. We thought with the election of Joe Biden that Donald Trump was finally finished, but today, over a year later, it's actually a bit worse here in Florida with these bills that are in committee and being pushed through about don't say gay and potential of book bans, the woke language. What do you think about what's going on in Tallahassee?
This is what I think about. I think about families and individuals are struggling every day about issues that affect them every day. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried about their families. They're worried about health care. In Florida, you know, we should do everything we could to protect our environment or stop the flooding that's occurring down south, to lower the prices that everyday Floridians are paying in the grocery stores and at the gas pumps. We don't have time for that agenda that is coming out of Tallahassee. We need to pass legislation that makes people's lives better and improves their quality of life. And when I am elected to the Senate, we are going to do just that.
It's interesting to me. One final question. As it relates to that platform and various different kinds of things, I know you're a very outspoken supporter of voting rights expansion.
Yes.
Broadly, you're speaking to the LGBTQ community, to the platform issues that you're bringing forth in Florida in this Senate campaign. What would you say to the LGBTQ community? What can they, in these perilous times that we're facing, what can they do? What can they do to support you? How can they help propel this farther? What would you say to them? Well,
first of all, I certainly need their help and want their help in this election. It is so critical. Our nation is in trouble. My website is valdemings.com. They can go sign up to volunteer, walk and knock on doors, make donations, make some phone calls for me. All of those things are important, but they need to also use their voices. We're in this together. We will not tolerate an America that continues to want to discriminate. We cannot tolerate that. We cannot go back to a darker time. Every person living in this country deserves better. And so we've got to work together and get it done.
Well, the election against Senator Marco Rubio in November, we're going to follow you closely. The LGBTQ community is going to follow you closely. He won, I believe, and it's been a while, around out of 8 million votes. I think he won by only like 32,000 votes. Very smallest of narrow margins. So the LGBTQ community could be very powerful in this Senate race. Well, we're going to follow you very closely.
Thank you.
Congratulations, an electric night here at the Florida LGBTQ Democratic Caucus.
Thank you.
Congresswoman Val Demings, running for U.S. Senate in Florida.
Thank you.
Orlando's first female police chief, Val Butler Demings, learned from her parents about the American dream. They didn't have much, 2 parents and 7 children in a small wood-framed house in Jacksonville. Her mother, Eloise Butler, worked as a maid. Her father, James, as a janitor, landscaper, and orange picker. As many jobs as it took to get by. Work hard and play by the rules, they taught her. Have faith, treat others as you want to be treated. Never tire of doing good. In America, these were the building blocks of a successful life. She took her first job at 14 as a dishwasher. Worked hard in school and became the first in her family to go to college, working at a fast food restaurant to pay the way. She became a social worker, working to protect children in broken homes. Then, dismayed at a system that was leaving too many families behind, she signed up to become a police officer, an officer with a social worker's heart. It was a tough path, and tougher still in the 80s for a woman and a Black American in a profession that had few of either. But no obstacle had ever deterred the daughter of James and Eloise. She graduated from the police academy with citations for excellence and quickly earned a reputation as a bold, creative cop willing to take on conventional thinking and the toughest parts of the city. Chief Demings served 27 years and at every rank in the department. She commanded the Special Operations Division and handled the department's highest profile tasks. She coordinated the response of the Airport Division on 9/11, and in 2007, she made history when she was appointed to serve as the city's first female police chief. The eyes of the city were on her. The financial crisis was squeezing budgets, but by taking the tough fights head on, she did more with less, kept officers on the street, crushed violent crime, and reducing it by 40%. In 2016, Chief Demings was elected by the voters of Florida's 10th district to serve in Congress. She swiftly gained a reputation as a tireless champion for public safety, civil rights, and the American dream that had given her a chance to succeed. She gained widespread acclaim for her conduct as a deliberative and justice-focused impeachment manager during the first impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump. Congresswoman Val Demings and her husband Jerry Demings, who's currently serving as the mayor of Orange County, have been blessed with 3 children and 5 grandchildren. When she's not serving her constituents and spending time with her family, she rides her Harley Davidson Road King Classic. Through it all, she's never tired of doing good, the lesson taught to her by her parents in their home in Jacksonville. She's never given up on that promise of what America could be if we have the bravery to fight for it together. Please welcome our very good friend, Congresswoman Val Demings.
Thank you, 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 thank you. Well, good evening, everybody. It is so good. It's so good. It is really so good for me to be here in St. Pete with you. I want to thank you for this invitation to say just a few words, but before I do that, I want to remind you that leadership is not easy, especially when you're trying to do it right, especially when you're trying to do your job by representing the interests of everybody. And so I want to take just a moment to thank your president, Stephen, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for bringing us together. President John F. Kennedy, during his inaugural address, said that, "Let every nation know that we will pay any price, that we will bear any burden, that we will support any friend and oppose any foe for the success and the survival of liberty." I want you to think about those words and the battles that we're fighting today. See, that is why. See, our liberties, our freedoms always come with a price. When we think about the struggles in the LGBTQ plus community, there are those who have struggled, there are those who suffered, there are even those who have died for the survival and the success of liberty. See, that is why we are not sitting down, we are not shutting up, we are not going back. We're going to fight and fight and fight some more. And let me give you another message. As a mother of 3 sons, leave our children the hell alone. And if you did not know, let me tell you, I am running for the United States Senate, and I'm running to win. See, let me tell you something. Florida can do better, and Florida will do better when we send a message to Marco Rubio: hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. See, why does this matter? Why is it so important? See, I'm working for that Florida, working for that America that we said we are, not the America that discriminates, not the America that picks winners and losers based on your ability to pay to play. I'm working for that America that for every person, regardless of who they are, the color of their skin, how much money they have in the bank, their sexual orientation, or their religion, has an opportunity to succeed. We're not going to tolerate any other America. That is the America we were promised, and we're going to hold America to its promise. Why does this matter? Why is it so important? Why is it so important to me? Why is it so important to you? See, I was in the Capitol on January 6th. I was there to witness the peaceful transfer of power. And although we have been asked to not believe our lying eyes and lying ears, remember, it was just another tourist day. There was nothing peaceful about the peaceful transition of power. See, I was there when the Capitol Police ran in and told the members of Congress to get down on the floor and don a gas mask. See, I was there when I heard the rioters outside chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." and they rolled the gallows on the Capitol lawn. They had the desire and the means to do so. See, I was there when they beat police officers down with flagpoles, baseball bats, and pipes, and flagpoles carrying the American flag. People who refuse to accept the will of the people. See, remember, we are a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and the people matter. And the people had spoken. I remember one of my colleagues, when they told us to get down on the floor, she said to me, "Val, what do you think is going to happen?" I said, "I'm not sure what is going to happen. But if we all die today, then if we are as big and bad as we say we are, if we really believe in the United States Constitution, the rule of law, and our democracy, if those things matter at all, then another group will just come in and certify those electoral ballots declaring Joe Biden as the president of the United States and Kamala Harris as the vice president of the United States. See, the will of the people, it matters. And we can talk about health care. We can talk about public education. We can talk about the housing crisis. We can talk about Social Security and Medicare. We can talk about paying a livable wage that's truly livable. We can talk about getting the Equality Act that's sitting in the Senate passed. We can talk about a woman's right to choose when are they going to get over it. But let me remind you, we can talk about all of those things, all of those priorities that are your priorities and my priorities. We can talk about the anti-LGBTQ plus legislation that we're seeing moving through Florida and moving through other states. We can talk about all of that. But none of that matters. It's all at risk unless we work to protect the right to vote. See, John Lewis, my friend and colleague, said the right to vote is precious, that is almost sacred. And they can try to make voting more difficult, but they cannot make it impossible, because we're going to the poll and vote Democrats in, up and down the ballot. Is it easy? No. No, it's not easy. Is it easy? No, it is not easy, but I want you to think about some things that you've done in your life that weren't easy. You thought it was impossible, but you knew it was worth it, and you kept moving, you kept fighting, and you got it done. We have got to get to the polls come November 8th. We're not accepting no for an answer. Losing is not an option come November 8th. We will elect a Democratic governor for the state of Florida. We will elect more Democrats to the Florida House, please, yes. We will elect more Democrats to the Florida Senate. We will elect more Democrats to the United States House of Representatives. And with your help, with each one of you, come November 8th, I will be elected the next U.S. Senator to represent the great state of Florida. God bless you, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next senator from the state of Florida, Val Demings. Well, I certainly cannot top that. I just want to thank all of our speakers tonight. I want to thank all of you for coming out this weekend. We've had an amazing
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure